They say failure is the best teacher. But what if you're the student who keeps showing up and still doesn't learn? What no matter how hard you try, things keep falling apart. Your plans crumble, your dreams wither, and success seems like a horizon that never comes closer. Now, imagine this. One quiet morning, before the sun even kisses the earth, something shifts. Not in the world, but inside you. Something that rewrites every failure you've lived through. This is the story of a man on the edge. A man tired of trying. And how one morning, before the world even noticed, changed everything. There was once a man named Armin, 32, exhausted. His once vibrant eyes now carried the weight of too many disappointments. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't clueless. No, Armin was the kind of man who tried, again and again and again, but every time he built something, it fell apart. He had tried starting a business. Twice. The first time, a silent partner robbed him blind. The second, a pandemic tore the world down before his cafe even had a chance. He had applied for jobs, submitted resumes, sat for interviews. Some ghosted him. Some gave hope and vanished. And some just told him he didn't fit their vision. Friends had started calling him unlucky. Family stopped expecting updates. And he started waking up with a heaviness in his chest that no coffee could fix. But what hurt most was that he still believed. Deep down, he still believed he was meant for something more. But believing hurts when the world keeps kicking your hope in the ribs. One night, lying awake in the darkness of his cramped apartment, Armin whispered into the silence, "What am I doing wrong?" No answer came, only the buzzing of the refrigerator and the soft creaks of the city beyond his walls. He fell asleep sometime after 3 a.m., his heart numb and his mind exhausted. But something strange happened just before dawn. A dream, vivid, too real to ignore. He found himself standing in the middle of an enormous, dark forest. The trees were tall, looming over him like silent judges. Fog clung to his feet like chains, and a cold wind whispered things he didn't understand. He looked down. In his hands, a golden compass glowed faintly, but the needle spun erratically, pointing nowhere. Then a voice, calm, stern, not from around him, but from within. "You've been running in circles, Armin, not because you're lost, but because you wake up too late." He turned around. No one. "What do you mean?" he asked, not knowing that the voice would answer. "When the world sleeps, the truth wakes," the voice replied. "One morning you'll understand, but it must be before the sun rises." Then silence, and just like that, he woke up, drenched in sweat. It was 4:41 a.m. He sat up, heart pounding. That dream, it wasn't like the usual ones. It didn't fade after waking. It clung to him, like it had planted a seed. What if he actually listened? Without thinking too much, he rose from bed, splashed cold water on his face, and sat at his tiny desk by the window. The city was still asleep. The street below was empty, and for the first time in months, the world felt quiet. He stared into the dark, breathing slowly. No notifications, no noise, just stillness. And in that stillness, ideas began to surface. Not loud or dramatic, just gentle thoughts. Patterns, mistakes he'd overlooked. Habits that quietly sabotage his efforts. He realized something unsettling. He was always reacting, waking up late, checking his phone immediately, chasing the day like a man always late to his own life. No planning, no intention, just reaction. But now, at 5 a.m., for the first time, he wasn't reacting. He was observing, reflecting, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, clarity. That morning, he wrote down everything, his mistakes, his dreams, what he truly wanted, not what others told him to want. He made one decision. For the next 30 days, he would wake up before 5 a.m. No matter what. The first few days were brutal. His body resisted. His mind whined. Friends mocked him. "What are you, some monk now?" But something inside had clicked. The compass needle in his soul had stopped spinning. It pointed forward. He used those early hours not to grind, not to work like a machine, but to center himself. He read. He walked in the park as the world stretched awake. He reflected. He built a vision board. He wrote down action steps. And most importantly, he stopped rushing. For once, he was ahead of the day, ahead of the stress, the failure, the noise. Within 2 weeks, things started shifting. Tiny things. He got a call from a startup he'd applied to months ago. They were interested in a content strategy position. He went to the interview, calm, prepared, centered. He didn't try to impress them. He expressed himself. And they saw something in him. Something most people lose in the chase for success. Depth, not noise, not ego, but depth. He didn't get the job, but they offered something better. A collaboration. A chance to co-develop a storytelling platform for youth motivation. A dream he had once shelved when his cafe failed. This time, he didn't panic. He didn't jump in recklessly. He asked the right questions. He took time. He planned, because that early morning practice had taught him that success isn't about speed. It's about direction. Every day, as the clock hit 4:45 a.m., he returned to that desk. Same stillness, same lamp, same ritual. It was no longer a punishment. It was power. And then something happened. On the 28th morning, as he sat watching the sun rise behind the foggy skyline, he received a message from a man named Mr. Vedant Roy, a motivational speaker he had once emailed during his rock-bottom months. I read your blog post. Let's talk. I think your story needs a bigger platform. He blinked, stunned. He had almost forgotten about that post. It was raw, honest. He had poured his failure into it one morning when the pain felt too much. He hadn't even shared it widely. But someone had found it, and something told him this was it. This was the morning he had dreamed of, the one the voice spoke about, the one where everything could change. So here's the truth no one wants to hear. It's not always the world that blocks your path. Sometimes it's the way you start your day. You don't fail because you're not good enough. You fail because you start after the world has already begun to shape you. But what if, for once, you started before it did? What if one morning, one quiet, early morning, could become the turning point? Armin's journey isn't over, but his failures, they finally have a direction. And in part 2, you'll discover how that one morning didn't just change his life. It helped him rebuild the lives of countless others. Because when you heal yourself, you carry the power to awaken others too. Stay with us. The Zoom call with Vedant Roy began with silence. Respectful, focused silence. Armin sat upright, a faint beam of early morning sunlight slicing to the curtain behind him. It was symbolic, somehow, as if life itself was opening a door. Vedant finally spoke, his voice steady, calm. I read your post at 4 a.m., he said. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. Armin blinked. I wrote that post because I felt like no one was listening. That's exactly why people listen, Vedant replied. It was real. They spoke for over an hour, not about followers, not about metrics, but about impact, about how people, millions of them, wake up every day drowning in invisible failure, not because they're incapable, but because they're misaligned. People aren't broken, Vedant said. They're just waking up too late, in every sense. And that became the seed of something new, a joint project, a digital platform called First Light, designed to help people take back their mornings and, in turn, take back their lives. They started small, a blog, a newsletter, short video clips of Armin talking about how he shifted his mindset. No glamour, no over-polished content, just truth in motion. And people began to respond. Emails flooded in. This made me cry. I felt seen. I tried waking up early for the first time in years, and I didn't hate myself today. But what truly cemented the movement was something no one planned. One morning, Armin recorded a 3-minute video on his rooftop. Shirt wrinkled, eyes swollen from waking up, wind howling behind him. And he said, "You keep failing because the world gets to you before you get to yourself. You wake up and hand your soul over to chaos. Social media, news, noise, before you even speak to your own mind. But the morning, when it's silent, when the world is still asleep, that's when your truth can whisper. You don't need motivation. You need alignment. You need silence before strategy. The video went viral, not because it was polished, but because it was honest, raw, and more importantly, relatable. First light exploded. People from India, South Africa, Canada, the Philippines, and everywhere between began sharing their 4:45 Club routines. Thousands woke up with him. Thousands changed with him. But here's the thing about growth. It tests you. Just when you think you figured it out, life throws one more punch to see if you've really changed or if it was all just a performance. 3 months into his new life, Armin received devastating news. His father, estranged for years, had passed away. Heart failure. They hadn't spoken in 5 years. The silence between them was thick with blame and misunderstanding. Regret hit like a freight train. He considered skipping his morning ritual. What was the point? His breath felt heavier. The dawn felt colder. The silence, for the first time, didn't comfort, it mocked. But something inside him, the same compass that once spun wildly, pulled him up. He woke up at 4:30 a.m., sat in silence, lit a candle, closed his eyes, and whispered, "I forgive you, Dad, and I forgive myself." That morning, he didn't chase productivity. He simply sat. He let the grief come, not to destroy, but to cleanse. Later that week, he shared the experience with his audience. No dramatics, just truth. Even when life breaks you, he said, don't skip your morning. That's the only time you can rebuild. People cried, people connected, and people believed because they saw a man who didn't preach from a mountaintop. They saw a man who fell, bled, and still stood back up before sunrise. First Light became more than a platform. It became a movement. A woman in Brazil credited the morning ritual with pulling her out of depression. A teenager in Turkey used it to study in peace before school. A former addict in Detroit said his first 30 sober days began at 4:45 a.m. with Armin's voice playing in his ears. But amid all the success, Armin remained grounded because he knew something most people overlook. The enemy isn't failure. The enemy is forgetting. Forgetting who you are. Forgetting what matters. Forgetting to listen before you speak. And forgetting that every single day you get a new chance. A blank slate. All it asks is that you wake up for it. He made a rule for himself. Simple. Non-negotiable. Before I give my energy to the world, I give it to myself. One morning, nearly a year from the day of that strange dream, he stood on a stage in front of 1,000 people at a wellness conference. The backdrop behind him displayed just one phrase, "Why you keep failing." He walked slowly across the stage, quietly, then said, "You don't fail because you're weak. You fail because you wake up in the middle of your story. You wake up already late, already tired, already drowning in everyone else's version of what you should be. But success, peace, clarity, those things don't live in chaos. They live in the quiet hours, before the noise, before the demand." One morning changed my life. And the best part? You don't need to wait for a miracle, or a dream, or rock bottom. You just need to wake up early enough to meet yourself again. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was slow, gentle, the kind that comes from people who are absorbing, not clapping out of politeness. After the talk, a young woman approached him, eyes teary, voice shaking. "My brother took his life last year. He used to try so hard, always got rejected. I never understood his pain. But after hearing you, I think I finally do. And I think you saved my life today." Armin didn't say anything. He just placed a hand on her shoulder, nodded, and said, "We keep going, one morning at a time. Because that's all any of us really have. One morning at a time. The failures you carry, they're not your destiny. They're just the evidence that you haven't found your rhythm yet. And sometimes that rhythm begins at 4:45 a.m., when no one is watching, and you finally remember that before the world defines you, you get to define yourself. So if you're tired of failing, If you're tired of feeling like the world is 5 steps ahead, if you're tired of trying and still feeling lost, don't start with another hustle. Don't start with another goal. Start with one quiet morning. Before the noise, before the doubt, before the day owns you. Wake up early. Meet yourself. And listen. You may just hear the one thing that's been missing all along. Your own truth. That's how one morning can fix it all. Because it's not about fixing the world. It's about fixing your alignment with it. And that always begins with you. Before sunrise. Before anyone else. Just you and the quiet.